आज म तपाईहरुलाई चाहिँ B.Ed सेकेन्ड इयरको यो मेजर इंग्लिश सब्जेक्ट इंग्लिश फर कम्युनिकेसन भन्ने यो सब्जेक्टको चाहिँ यो युनिट 1 को सल्युसन म तपाईलाई चाहिँ शेयर गर्न गइरहेको छु। यहाँ तपाईहरु हेर्न सक्नुहुनेछ यो चाहिँ क्वेशन नम्बर 11 रहेको छ। मैले 10 सम्म चाहिँ मैले तपाईलाई चाहिँ शेयर गरिसकेको छु। एक्जाममा सोधिने खालका क्वेशन आन्सरहरु मैले तपाईलाई चाहिँ यो शेयर गरिरहेको छु। यो चाहिँ अनि त्यसपछि मैले चाहिँ यसलाई चाहिँ तपाईहरु चाहिँ मैले आफैले पढेर मैले तपाईलाई चाहिँ सुनाइरहेको छु ताकि तपाईहरुले चाहिँ सुनेर पनि तपाईले चाहिँ धेरै कुरा चाहिँ याद गर्न सक्नुहुन्छ। ठाउँ ठाउँमा चाहिँ म प्रोनाउन्समा चाहिँ अलिकति अक्मकिन्छु। प्रोनाउन्समा चाहिँ मेरो अलि थोरै गडबडी हुन्छ, तर पनि तपाईले चाहिँ त्यसलाई चाहिँ सही प्रोनाउन्स गर्न सक्नुहुन्छ। यदि तपाईले प्रोनाउन्स गर्न जान्नु भएन भने त्यसलाई चाहिँ तपाईले चाहिँ डिक्सनरीमा हैन अथवा मोबाइल डिक्सनरीमा अथवा तपाईले नेटमा चाहिँ तपाईले चाहिँ खोज्नु भयो भने त्यसलाई चाहिँ सही प्रोनाउन्स त्यसलाई चाहिँ तपाईले चाहिँ गर्दिन्छ। हुन्छ, यहाँ चाहिँ क्वेशन नम्बर 11 मा चाहिँ व्हाट इज मीन्ड बाइ कम्युनिकेटिभ ल्याङ्ग्वेज एक्सपोनेन्ट्स इलस्ट्रेट विथ एक्जाम्पल्स भनेर भनेको छ। त्यसैगरी सेम क्वेशनमा यहाँनिर व्हाट आर द एलिमेन्ट्स दैट डिटरमाइन द एक्सपोनेन्ट्स अफ ल्याङ्ग्वेज भनेर चाहिँ रहेको छ। एक्सपोनेन्ट्स आर ल्याङ्ग्वेज utterance or forms of speaker uses to express a message, to indicate an awareness of elements in the situation and to keep the topic when it is important to do so, as in the interview. The selection of exponents largely depends upon the linguistic competence and the situation to be encountered. It also depends upon the personalities involved in speaking and the degree of formality to be observed. For example, in the case of requesting someone to open the door, the following exponents are possible. Please open the door. Open the door, please. Would you open the door? Would you mind opening the door? I wonder if you would mind opening the door. It might be a good idea to open the door. यो चाहिँ एक्सपोनेन्ट को बारेमा चाहिँ रहेको थियो। यो व्हाट इज कम्युनिकेटिभ ल्याङ्ग्वेज एक्सपोनेन्ट्स रहेको थियो र यसको चाहिँ एक्जाम्पल रहेको थियो। यो तपाईले चाहिँ यो कम्युनिकेटिभ ल्याङ्ग्वेज एक्सपोनेन्ट्स को बारेमा चाहिँ यो रहेको थियो। तपाईले चाहिँ सुन्नु होला अनि त्यसपछि तपाईले यसलाई नोट गर्नु भएको छैन भने नोट गर्न सक्नुहुन्छ। अर्को यहाँनिर रहेको छ क्वेशन नम्बर 12 मा चाहिँ मेन्सन द क्राइटेरिया दैट शुड बी फलोड व्हाइल सेलेक्टिङ इंग्लिश एक्सपोनेन्ट्स। In the selection of exponents, dialects, standard, non-standard, formality or informality of language, mode, spoken, written are also taken care of. According to B.Ed, in the selection of English exponents, the following criteria should be used. The total learning load must be kept as small as possible. Select those forms which serve more than one purpose. In other words, which can be used in more than one language function are to be selected first. The total set of exponent selected should be as coherent and balanced as possible. This applies to the coverage of semantic field by lexical items as well as consistency of the total grammatical content. The learner will be expected to play the more neutral social and psychological roles. This means the exponents selected are to the socially and psychologically unmarked. Extremes of informality, formality, etc. must be avoided. The learners will have to be able to understand more than they can produce themselves. Some exponents, as in the threshold level, which are marked P, are meant for the learners to produce, while R marked ones are for receptive purposes only. त्यसै गरी यहाँनिर चाहिँ अर्को क्वेशन नम्बर आएको छ 13 मा चाहिँ व्हाट इज लिंग्विस्टिक कम्पिटेन्स एक्सप्लेन विथ एक्जाम्पल्स व्हाट इज कम्युनिकेटिभ कम्पिटेन्स एक्सप्लेन विथ एक्जाम्पल्स डिस्टिंग्विश बिट्विन लिंग्विस्टिक एन्ड कम्युनिकेटिभ कम्पिटेन्स यो चाहिँ लिंग्विस्टिक र कम्युनिकेटिभ कम्पिटेन्सको बारेमा चाहिँ रहेको छ अथवा लिंग्विस्टिक कम्पिटेन्स Linguistic competence is the system of linguistic knowledge possessed by native speakers of a language. It is in contrast to the concept of linguistic performance, the way the language system is used in communication. The concept was first introduced by Noam Chomsky as part of the foundations of his generative grammar, but it has since been adopted and developed by other linguists, particularly those working in the generativist tradition. In the generativist tradition, competence is the only level of language that is studied because this level gives insight into the universal grammar that generativists see as underlying all human language systems. Functional theories of grammar tend to dismiss the sharp distinction between competence and performance, and particularly the primacy given to the study of competence. According to Chomsky, competence is the ideal language system that makes it possible for speakers to produce and understand an infinite number of sentences in their language, and to distinguish grammatical sentences from ungrammatical sentences. This is unaffected by grammatically irrelevant conditions such as speech errors. अर्को यहाँ रहेको छ कम्युनिकेटिभ कम्पिटेन्स. On the other hand, is a term in linguistics which refers to language users' grammatical knowledge of syntax, morphology, phonology, and the like, as well as social knowledge about how and when to use utterances appropriately. The notion of communicative competence is one of the theories that underlies the communicative approach to foreign language teaching. Cannell and Soin define communicative competence in terms of three components: grammatical competence, words and rules; sociolinguistic competence, appropriateness; strategic competence, appropriate use of communication strategies. The meaning of an utterance, a sentence, a clause, a phrase, a word, etc. do not depend entirely on its form. A lot depend on who says that, to whom, where, why, in what manner, and in what effect. In other words, the context of situation in which an utterance is said, who said it, and to whom are very important. For instance, the occurrence "Can I have the salt please" is interrogative in the form but expresses a polite request in a dining room. Grammatical knowledge is not enough to help us participate effectively in communicative situation. In addition to acquainting oneself with the forms of language, one must know the following in order to communicate it appropriately. The socio-cultural relation, including the attitude, values, conventions, prejudices, and preferences of the people who use the language. The nature of participants, which shows the relationship between the speaker and the listener, their occupation, interest, socioeconomic status, etc. The role of participants, such as the relationship in social network, father, son, teacher, student, boss, subordinate, landlord, tenant, doctor, patient, etc. The nature of function of the speech deals with whether it is a face-to-face talk, persuasion, confrontation, or a casual conversation, or a request informal situation, or a telephonic conversation, etc. The mode, medium of communication, whether spoken or written form or reading from a written script or unprepared speech. यो चाहिँ रहेको थियो कम्युनिकेटिभ कम्पिटेन्सको बारेमा र यो लिङ्ग्विस्टिक कम्पिटेन्सको बारेमा। हुन्छ, आजलाई यति नै। मैले तपाईलाई चाहिँ यहाँसम्म चाहिँ सेयर गरेँ। अब आउने नेक्स्ट भिडियोमा चाहिँ व्हाट इज कम्युनिकेसन अथवा ओरल कम्युनिकेसन अथवा रिटन कम्युनिकेसनको बारेमा चाहिँ म तपाईलाई चाहिँ आउने भिडियोमा चाहिँ यसरी नै म तपाईलाई चाहिँ सेयर गर्ने नै छु। तबसम्म चाहिँ तपाईले चाहिँ मेरो भिडियोलाई चाहिँ लाइक गरिदिनु होला, सेयर गरिदिनु होला र मेरो च्यानललाई तपाईले सब्स्क्राइब गर्नुभएको छैन भने सब्स्क्राइब पनि गरिदिनु होला।